everybody! Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a super casual video, hence the casual attire and casual hair and casual face, because I'm going to be talking about personal statements. Now, by the time I'm uploading this, the early deadline is like next Saturday, so this advice may not be useful for people who are applying for early deadline, but I'm hoping that my advice, now I've written my personal statement, might help you guys. Of course, disclaimer, I don't know if my personal statement's any good. I hate it personally, but the process has been quite a process, and I feel like I've learnt a lot along the way that I want to like share with you in case you're applying in January or if you're applying like next year. But anyway, I hope that this is of some use. Number one is to make sure you know what course you want to do. This sounds really stupid, but I actually started my personal statement before I knew what course I wanted to do. So I was writing two to start with, and actually I found that was a really good way to decide what course I wanted to do. If you're really stuck, start writing a personal statement for your options, and the one that writes easier, like the one that's easier to write and the one that flows more, is definitely the one that you should do at university. So I started writing a personal statement for Spanish and English, and I really couldn't write it, but as soon as I started writing one for Spanish and German, I found it a lot easier to like get the vibes going. And I find that unless you know what you want to do, you're not going to finish it properly. So definitely use it as a tool to pick, but don't like write a whole thing if you're still not sure on which one you want to do. My second tip is know which universities you're applying to, because that actually does make a difference to how your personal statement is laid out. So if you're applying to places like Oxford, Cambridge, really competitive academic unis, or medicine or veterinary science or whatever, your personal statement is going to want to be like at least 70% academic, like 70%, 80%, 90% academic and 10% extracurricular. So if this is my personal statement, that is academic and that little paragraph at the bottom is extracurricular, because I'm applying to universities that, when I've been to their open days, have said that we'd much rather see the academic side than the extracurricular side. Don't completely, you know, not put your extracurriculars in, but they need to take up a lot smaller space than like the books you've read or the courses you've been on or whatever. And if you're applying somewhere that puts a lot more focus on extracurriculars, like a sports course or a creative arts course or something that requires, you know, extracurriculars, then put more emphasis on that. The best way to find out about that is to go to open days or to ring the university. I've emailed a couple of universities and been like, what are you looking for in your personal statement? And also bear in mind that universities don't put that much weight on your personal statement, especially universities like Exeter, and where else have I been that have said, Edinburgh. They both said that they only use the personal statement as like a distinguisher between two similar people. They look at your grades first. So although your personal statement is important, it's part of like a holistic application, especially for somewhere like Oxford. I'm hoping that if my personal statement's absolutely horrible, it won't matter. My next tip is to start not with the start. So don't write your first opening line first. I sat for hours trying to figure out what to write for my first line, and then somebody told me, write the rest of it first. And I did, and the last thing I wrote actually was my first paragraph. And I found that because I'd written everything else, I knew how to introduce it to make it flow, to fit in with everything else. So don't be afraid to like not write it in order, if that makes sense. Like, don't be afraid to write the conclusion first and then go and do something else. Don't be afraid to write the middle paragraph first and branch out. Don't be afraid to just do it in the order that you want to do it. As long as it all comes together in the end, it really doesn't matter. The next point is plan. So as I went through year 12 and like the end of year 11, whenever I did something to do with languages or English, I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And when I came to write my personal statement, I had this huge list of things that I'd done and books that I've read and plays that I'd seen and courses that I'd been on that I could use on my personal statement. So that was really useful to have, rather than trying to remember everything that you've done. And my other tip with this is to prioritise. So my personal statement was actually 7,000 characters when I first wrote it. And I had to cut out so much, like so many books that I've read and future learn courses that I've done and things, just to make sure that it fits. But what I did was I took the list that I made and put it in order of things that I wanted to put on my personal statement, and then cut it out from the bottom until it all fit in. So don't be afraid to like cut things out, because even if you don't mention it in your personal statement, if you do have an interview, you can mention it in your interview and it looks even better because it's like extra stuff besides the extra stuff that you've done for your personal statement. So keep a note of what you haven't put in, and it may come in useful. My next tip is to not worry about the character count to start with. Just write it. Like, write it and write everything you want to say, write everything you want to do, and once you've got it and you've finished it, take it to a teacher that you know is going to be really like ruthless with it. There's no point in taking it to a teacher that's going to be like, yeah, that's great. You need to take it to a teacher that's not afraid to cross stuff out, to tell you that you've written in a sloppy way, to give you advice, to give you tips. So the teacher that I went to, we had like 7 meetings with it, and my personal statement took me 7 drafts, but it went from being quite badly, not badly written, but quite simplistic, to being elegant whilst being concise at the same time. So make sure you pick a teacher, and don't go to like 50 bajillion teachers, because it's going to stress you out having 70 million people telling you different things, because I did that and it really upset me. I got really upset about it because I had one teacher telling me this, another teacher telling me that, another person telling me this, another person telling me that. By all means get people to read it, but take people's feedback like on the chin, because at the end of the day it's your personal statement, and it needs to sound like it's coming from you, not from a teacher, not from your friend, not from the woman down the road. It just needs to sound like you. Leads me on to my next tip is, don't try and be someone you're not in your personal statement. My personal statement doesn't sound like, it doesn't convey my personality completely, just because how well can you convey your personality in 4,000 characters, but I'm happy that if someone was to ask me a question about it, I would be able to talk about it, because I'm not faking anything. Just keep it totally real, because if you lie, or if you cheat, or if you get your teacher to write something that you don't understand fully, then it's not going to help you in the long run. It's not doing anyone a favour. It's not doing the universities a favour. It's not doing you a favour. So keep it real, keep it true to yourself, and make sure that you are happy with it before you send it off. My next tip is to sleep on it. I think this is the best thing to do. I started my personal statement on the 30th of August, like properly. Like I've been picking at it over the summer. I've been doing little bits, but I sat down and wrote my first draft completely on the 30th of August, and I finished it on the 30th of September, so it took me exactly a month. And I found that sometimes I've been sat looking at it for so long that I couldn't read it objectively, so I'd leave it for a few days and then come back to it, and then you've got like a fresh mindset. I also find that that's when giving it to teachers is really helpful, because they are looking at it at like intervals. So I used to give it to my teacher and then let her have like 3 days with it, and then be like, okay, now I can look at it again, because I haven't been mulling over it for the last week. So yeah, I would say definitely sleep on it, and don't try and do it all in one rush. Try and write it over a period of time, because that allows leeway for changes of mind, for changes of opinion, for adding new stuff in, taking new stuff out. Give yourself at least a month's period where you're drafting it. And that leads me on to my final point, which is, don't let it overtake your life, because your personal statement's really important, but it's not so important as your A-levels. So maybe like dedicate some time to it, but don't jeopardise your other work in favour of your personal statement, because at the end of the day it's going to be your grades that get you into university. Even Oxford, when I've been, and Cambridge, have been like, yes, your personal statement's important if you're doing an arts and humanities subject. You know, I heard that for physics they don't even read it, but whatever. But like, that's the only time that the personal statement is important, is at interview. But they also look at your grades, they look at your interview performance, they look at your test performance, they look at your written work, they look at so many things. So just remember that the personal statement is one little bit of that. If you can get it happy, if you can get it so that you're happy with it, great. If you're still not quite happy with it, just remember that it's because you've read it so many times. So I hope this video is of some use. I'm in no way saying that like I've got a perfect personal statement, because I actually hate my personal statement so much. But it's 3,999 characters and I'm going to send it off this week. So I hope this was useful, informative. If you have any questions about personal statements, leave it down below. And I am filming a UCAS journey video, which I'm going to upload once I've got all my university offers. So like that video will be around in like January time, hopefully. But yeah, until then, I will see you very soon.